Namaste and welcome back to the channel. Thank you for joining me. So today, as the title says, we're looking at Swami Vivekananda's unique definition of meditation as power. We'll also be looking at, in this sort of second half of the video, how to develop the power of meditation according to yoga. And we'll be going through 10 rules. I call them 10 rules of inner harmony. They are, you will probably all know them very well, the Yamas and the Niyamas, the do's and don'ts, the moral precepts of yoga, which comes before we can actually meditate effectively. So this is just by way of introduction. The video is time-stamped below, so you can roll forward to any of the precepts, any part of the video that interests you. I hope you enjoy it. So coming to Vivekananda's definition of meditation that I will address today, we're so used to listening to definitions of meditation that say one thing or another. It's non-judgment, it's identification with the inner being or with the true self, all of which is probably true. But today I wanted to look specifically at Vivekananda's definition, and that is, meditation is the power which enables us to resist our slavery to nature. It is the power that enables us to resist slavery to nature. We might think of that as being able to resist a desire that's dragging us out of our comfort zone, in the best possible sense of comfort zone. Or we may think of that in terms of a disaster. And this is what Vivekananda uses as an example. He says nature snatches your child from you and kills it, and then throws you down and says, there, go to the devil, be miserable and depressed and destroyed. But with the power of meditation, you can jump up and you say, no, I will not. I am going to remain happy, positive, forward going. And he says, wouldn't it be wonderful if you could simply jump up with joy and positivity and not be knocked down? Now, he says, if you had that power in yourself, would not that be freedom, heaven? He says, meditation is the gate that opens that infinite joy to us. So meditation is a power that gives us infinite joy. It gives us the ultimate freedom. So that's the ultimate goal with meditation. Now, when we talk about learning meditation, or are you interested in meditation, things like that, sometimes people may get distracted from the fact that perhaps they already have a meditation practice that they're doing. I think it's important to recognize that we all may have different ways of meditating. Yes, there are many classical ways to teach meditation and many ways that people are coming up with new methods, new tweaks to a meditation method, which are great and really, really useful. But as Vivekananda says, there are a dozen different ways of meditating, and each temperament has its own way. So we may consider that to be the modern psychological idea of individual differences. Every single individual is unique. And so it's quite possible, that every single individual has their own method of meditation. It is not necessary that you sit down and are absolutely quiet in meditation. It may be rare, but it may be that some people meditate when they're in action. The one key principle of all meditations is that they get hold of the mind, to quote Vivekananda. Classical meditation, we are told to keep quiet, stay still, and watch the thoughts without reacting to them. Just observe without judgment and without any kind of reaction. eventually, as Vivekananda says here, the thoughts will stop coming. He says, nature will give you up. Then you know who you really are. You come into contact with the true self or God. And you know that because it feels wonderful. You feel free, you feel blissful, and you feel light. That is the fundamental principle of any form of meditation. Another phrase Vivekananda uses to describe meditation is self-concentration. And any form of meditation is a self-concentration. So your consciousness is gathered within yourself. Now, you can't necessarily tell if somebody else is meditating. They may be in hectic action and yet gathered within themselves. You may be one of those types of meditators. Others of us require peace and quiet and to sit in the classical forms in order to understand our nature and to overcome it. It may be that you need both. At some point you could meditate in action, but at other times you need to draw back. In fact, active meditators may in fact reveal that they do have times of incredible peace and silence. And it's in those times that their consciousness gathers itself in a classical meditation sense. We meditate because enlightenment, freedom, this ultimate freedom we seek is, to quote Vivekananda, a tremendous task. It is no simple matter. Vivekananda says first we have to overcome the subconscious, and then we must rise above the conscious mind. The subconscious has an incredible influence on our behavior. As Vivekananda mentioned, he said it's a very potent influence on our lives, on our behavior. And modern psychology as well recognizes the powerful influence of the subconscious. So first of all, we have to get hold of the subconscious. Now, if you think of how busy our physical system is, our subtle system is also that busy. In psychology, we learn about the nervous system. Our brain and our body are constantly feeding signals to each other. In yoga, Swami Vivekananda says that the currents going up and down the subtle channels on either side of the spinal cord are Ida and Pingala, and the currents, he says, are constantly passing up and down, and this is natural and normal. But it is not until those currents are controlled, mastered, stilled, that the central channel that runs up and down the spinal column, known as the Sushumna, opens and allows the spiritual energy to rise up from the base of the spine, up through the spiritual centers or chakras, to the brain and to the higher chakras, and that is where you realize your true self as God or as spiritual divine being, and that is your ultimate freedom. So it's a tremendous task, especially when you realize how much activity is going on without our awareness at every single moment, and how much is being buried into our subconscious that we're not even aware of. And of course, when you sit for meditation, any of you will know, if you meditate, try to still your mind, it can be a war zone in there. Your mind just goes crazy. It's battlefronts. It's going all over the place. So the vast task involves controlling the subconscious and then going beyond the conscious state. Such a great task as we have before us for the ultimate freedom. It requires action on all fronts. So meditation alone cannot yield the ultimate freedom. This is important. Vivekananda says, he who seeks to come to God through yoga must be strong mentally, physically, morally, and spiritually. We may think of it as mentally or physically, emotionally, mentally. But morally is really important. Moral purity is very important, because upon that, the actions we take that are moral tend to be in harmony with our higher self, with God. They don't create any form of dissonance within us. And every step we take in life, says Vivekananda, should be taken in that light. So it is not just when we sit for meditation that we take actions towards our ultimate freedom. Within every action, every thought of a day, we must take in the light of yoga, in the light of our ultimate goal. In traditional yoga, there are 10 precepts, moral do's and don'ts. I like to call them the 10 rules of harmony. They're very well known. And so what I'm going to do to make it more interesting to go through them is to take them from an emotional perspective. So we'll go through it like an exercise and think how we feel with regards to each one, which I think is a really good way of consolidating the information and making it real and practical for us in our everyday life. So there are 10 principles. 5 are creating harmony with regards to the external world. So Vivekananda calls these, they're known as Yamas, controlling the mind by avoiding externals. Let's say avoiding external stimuli that take us out of harmony with the true self. So the first one of these is Ahimsā, non-injury. Not hurting ourselves, not hurting others, including animals or plants, anything. If you think how you feel when you hurt another, say you say a spiteful word, or you push your pet away from you, you feel bad. You feel as hurt as the person who has been hurt by you, as you see that person or that animal crumble before you. It's a deeply unpleasant, saddening feeling that you get within you. And that feeling has taken you out of harmony and into dissonance. And so we avoid harming because we want to stay in alignment with our true self and with God. Second yama is Satya, truthfulness. Again, we can think of course, lying and feeling bad about that, dissonance, but also think about times when perhaps you've gotten into a discussion, a heated discussion about politics, and somebody is lambasting the government, hating the politicians, bringing up all the dreadful news and corruption, and you then join in and you say, oh yeah, I hate this and I hate them and they shouldn't be here and they should be thrown out. And if you really think about it, how does that make you feel? As you walk away from that conversation and say you want to go to bed, do you really feel at peace as you move away from that conversation? I would almost guarantee that you don't feel peaceful. So that is truthfulness, Satya. Be truthful to yourself. Be in harmony. Speak in harmony. Feel in harmony. Take actions, have attitudes, and have opinions that stem from a state of alignment with your true self. That requires the power, perhaps, of stepping back and observation, and that can be developed in meditation practice. Non-stealing is next, Asteya. Non-stealing, of course, we would not steal from others or from a shop or wherever, but it's also not taking more than we need. This is quite difficult for modern people to understand because, in a sense, these days we are taught, especially if we have our own business, or even if we're going for a job interview and we want to negotiate our earnings, we do look at the market rate for what we offer, which is business-like and practical, and we're told also to know our value. So we have, for example, counsellors who may charge just £30 an hour. Then we have others that charge £200 an hour. And yet they've all been trained, they've all got however many years experience. And the same with all different types of services. You have excellent, for example, graphic designers on certain platforms. Some of them will charge very reasonable rates, 17 to £20 for some work. Other people will charge nothing less than £200 for the same thing. And yet they're both equal, but the difference is that they're valuing themselves differently. And some people, influencers, would say that those who charge higher are valuing themselves higher. It can be an issue of quite a lot of dissonance. It's quite an art in the business world to know your worth, how much you should charge for your services. So there is a business-like scientific way of figuring out how much you should take for any service that you offer. But it's also important not to flip into dissonance with regards to this. If we look at the great yogis and saints, they never valued themselves in terms of money. They wouldn't ask for money. They waited for things to come to them. And yet, some yogis are very good at business advice and will know how to run the business side of, say, their ashram, if they have a bookshop or a grocery store or something like that. So they understand the balance and the correct way of doing business. And so we need to find that with regards to finances and yes, anything, in fact. Non-stealing. We shouldn't steal people's emotions and energy either. So we shouldn't draw on people to constantly help us with our emotions. We should learn self-regulation. So again, it's about finding harmony and understanding that there is a place of harmony for all the things that we have to do in our everyday lives. The next yama is Brahmacharya. Traditionally speaking, this was defined as chastity. And in a sense, it is that. But it is chastity across all forms of using your personal energy in life. This can be emotional energy. When we are emotionally manipulated by somebody, it feels extremely bad and it can be very harmful. If we do the same to another, we are harming them as well as harming ourselves. We don't want to use our energy badly, so this is correct use of personal energy. If it's with regards to sexuality, again, there should be a correct and respectful use of that energy, and there shouldn't be libertarianism, which can be extremely harmful. It can be extremely destructive on any front, whether it's to do with how you deal with people emotionally or how you deal in your intimate relationships physically. So Brahmacharya covers all areas of our personal energy, and being skillful and humane as well as intelligent with that use, because if we use it badly against somebody else, thinking it's a reward for us, you can guarantee that that bad effect will be worse for you ultimately or even immediately than for the person that you have treated badly. Non-greed, hoarding, or non-receiving of gifts, these are all ways that the next yama, known as Aparigraha, has been defined. Let's take a situation where you are walking down a beautiful shopping high street. You're admiring, there's some beautiful trees, there's some beautiful architecture, the air is fresh, you're feeling good. It's a wonderful, harmonious day. You're happy to see all the people out and about. Here we've got Christmas decorations coming up everywhere in the shops, in the windows. It's really beautiful. Okay, so you're on this shopping trip. You need to buy a t-shirt. So you go to the clothes shop, and as you walk in, you see rails and rails of beautiful clothes. T-shirts, sweatshirts, skirts, dresses, scarves, handbags, hats, jumpers for colours, new designs. And first of all, you think, oh, isn't that beautiful? And then you start saying, oh, do I need a new sweatshirt? Actually, I could really do with one of these or one of those. And then you start thinking, now, what's my budget? How could I maybe get this in on that? And before you know it, your mind's off in at least 5 different directions, and your energy and your emotions are following it. And suddenly you've lost all the peace that you had when you were walking down the high street, looking at the trees, feeling the lovely breeze on your skin, and enjoying seeing all the happy faces, all the people shopping around you, and admiring the decorations in the window. You've gone from being a happy, contented, harmonious observer of beauty to a grabbing, confused, desirous creature that is suddenly in a state of dissonance rather than flowing harmony. So that's the Aparigraha principle. So now we come to the Niyamas. Vivekananda describes these rules of harmony as actions that prevent the mind from wandering. So these could help us, for example, when we walk into the shop with all the rails of beautiful clothing, and they could help us to not be overwhelmed with excitement or even confusion on seeing all these beautiful, desirable items. The first is Saucha, cleanliness. Now today we speak of mental hygiene, which is a phrase that I think was introduced by the Brahmakumaris. It's a very good phrase. Keeping the mind hygienic, keeping it clean of rubbishy content from online, clean of bad music, bad conversation, clean of anything that leads us into dissonance. What is bad? What is sin? I think the mother of Pondicherry Ashram gave the best definition of sin I've ever read, which is that it's any action that takes you out of alignment with the divine. So we want to listen to music, we want to take actions, we want to say words that are in alignment, that keeps us in alignment with our spiritual true self, with God, with the divine. So Saucha is mental hygiene as much as physical hygiene and hygiene of the external world. So we don't throw rubbish on the streets. We keep our environment clean, our beautiful earth, our beautiful home, our room, our study, wherever it is, we keep it clean. We keep our clothes clean, our body clean, the mind and emotions clean. The next niyama is Santosha, which means contentment. One way of looking at this from an emotional perspective is the principle of gratitude. Practicing gratitude is an age-old custom across the world, West and East. recognizing the virtue of gratitude and its ability to open our heart and to keep us in harmony with a higher spirit, with a higher self, with our true self. These days, gratitude journals are very popular, and it's a good idea at the end of the day to sit down and, if you have a lot on your mind and you just want to rage and rant first. Get that down on a piece of paper and then throw it away, or don't, up to you. But then write down things that you're grateful for. It could be 3 things, 5, 8, 10, any number. But write them down and really feel how you feel about those things. Feel truly grateful for those things. And you will see how things improve. It may be actually good things, actual things come to you straight after you've done a gratitude journaling. But it may just be that you feel better. You come into a state of non-resistance. Non-resistance is another way of looking at Santosha. If we are able to not stand up and resist something, we will avoid a state of conflict, a state of pain, anxiety. Non-resistance can be developed again through meditation practice, because in meditation practice you learn how to observe without judgment your own thoughts, but also that starts to translate into your external world as well. You'll start to be able to observe things that perhaps would once have upset you. You're able to remain calm and in harmony throughout any situation. The next niyama is austerity, tapas. This is discipline. We need discipline in order to achieve anything in life. If you want to study to get a degree, you have to study for a certain number of hours a week. If you want to learn how to ride a horse, you have to go to classes regularly. If you want to drive a car, anything, you have to regularly learn how to do it, or do it regularly in practice in order to get good at it. The same with meditation. It took me many years of practicing meditation to get to quote Osho, the knack of meditation. It takes sometimes a long time to learn things, and you need a discipline with that to get to that point. Discipline can also be moral. That you constantly and consciously always obey your conscience. So you can be somebody who has an incredibly wild and free personality and life. But if you follow your conscience, you will always be in alignment with your true peaceful inner self. Anyway, we'll come back to conscience at the end. Next niyama is Svādhyāya, self-study. And this, I think, we can simply define as self-reflection, being honest with ourselves. How did I do today? What was my part in the conflict that happened? Did I really do my best in that situation? Did I hold something back out of spite or self-interest? How can I do better next time? How can I look at this? What is it in me that I need to change and improve? And what is it that I can strengthen and build in order to reduce the negative side of my personality or behavior? And the final niyama is Īshvara Pranidhana, self-surrender to God. This is a great grace when we can feel it. It is self-surrender. It is the surrender of the individual ego and the control of our lives by the ego. Feeling ourselves giving that up to the divine, to that higher power which holds us. And when we feel it holding us, that is a feeling of ultimate freedom, and we know we don't have to do anything. We're free, like a child. No responsibilities, absolutely free. And that is Īshvara Pranidhana. Once you've felt that freedom, it can affect your personality and become a lovely, free-flowing personality. You can develop that sense of free flow in the personality, fearlessness, trusting always that things will work out for you. Those kinds of aspects of your personality will certainly have come from, at any point, experiencing surrender to that higher power, to the divine. There's a sense, some part of you will have sensed that, and that will have rippled into your personality and created a trait of free flow, of not worrying, of trusting. The final point I wanted to make for this video is, how do we practice the moral precepts? How do we really get to them? And this is where it's very important to follow the conscience. We don't hear of that too much these days, but our inner voice, the conscience, is always there. From a child until you're an adult, it is there. The only thing it's harder to hear if your mind is very active and if your desires are very strong, if your reactions are very strong, it's completely crowded out by the noise. But the idea is to really feel the conscience. And again, if you tune into your emotions, it is like a guidance. Your emotions can be a guide to your conscience. And when you feel that dissonance within your emotions with regards to any action you're about to take or that you've just taken, you know that that was not in harmony with your conscience, with your true self. And every time you notice that, your awareness grows stronger and stronger until you really have changed yourself. You've developed great self-regulation and great control, and you've changed from perhaps a highly reactive person to an observing person and a thoughtful, reflecting person. And again, practice. Practice always. Why? To build our strength and weaken the opposite tendencies. So we should never feel put off when we observe negative tendencies in us. They're going to be there. The important thing is to notice the positives and to build on those positives so that we can weaken the negative tendencies, tip the balance. And you will see a result. If you do this sincerely, you can see a result in days, improvements. And again, I think the mother had a really good image for our evolutionary progress of a spiral. It is not just a line that goes up, but it's actually a spiral, and a spiral goes down before it goes up again, and down before it goes up again. So if you see something negative coming up again in your consciousness, you can just be calm and think, well, it just needs to be brought up again into the light. You can also be peaceful in the recognition of how far you've come, because you will, if you're doing the work, you will progress. And if something repeats, well, it's just that it needs to be taken up to the light again. So you go down, be grateful for having been shown that tendency and take it up into the light again. And you can be happy doing that because you know, great, I'm going to make more progress now. So thank you very much for joining me today in this video, and I hope it's been helpful to you. I look forward to your comments below, and I wish you a wonderful day. Namaste.